Welcome to the Money Gigs podcast. I'm Cliff Adams. You spent years mastering your musical product, but did you spend 1 hour in school or anywhere learning the actual economy of playing? Most gigging musicians feel like the system is broken, but today we're looking at why partnership is a path forward. This show is powered by Money Gigs, the app that helps you calculate your real worth and locate the best venues to play. We've already grown to a community of 70 performers with a dedicated group of unique daily users who are using shared data to protect their creative autonomy. Today, I'm talking with Joby Bowman of BREWRIVER Creole Kitchen. Joby is such a believer in the musician-venue partnership that she has a special gift for our listeners. Listen during the interview for the names of an iconic Cincinnati legend and his protege, two musicians. And if you visit Brew River before February 28th and mention this podcast and those two names to your server, you'll receive a $10 carryout gift card. As you listen, I also want you to keep an ear out for these three game-changing insights. Number one, why playing a good set is only 50% of the reason you get booked. Two, why 10 people in the room are worth more to an owner than 10,000 followers on Instagram. And three, the reality of the restaurant squeeze, including why Joby's electric bill has doubled since 2018. Understanding this economy is how you stop being a light bulb and start being a stakeholder. Let's get into it. Here's Joby Bowman. Let's go with who are you and what restaurant do you own and why the heck are you in this business?
I ask myself that question on a daily basis. My name is Joby Bowman. I own BREWRIVER Creole Kitchen in Cincinnati. Why am I in the business? Well, I worked my way through college working at a restaurant that unfortunately no longer exists in Cincinnati, but was around for I think more than 40 years, called Grand Finale. I loved that place, and I was there for 11 years on and off. Nobody ever left that restaurant who worked there, which is, as you know, doesn't happen anymore. It was a great spot. I was very lucky.
What made it special?
You know, I asked myself that question as an owner because obviously I took a lot of insight and, just from being there and watching the managers. And I think it was a combination of the time. That was a time when a really good restaurant could thrive just based on the food itself and the atmosphere. They didn't take reservations. People waited an hour and a half to 2 hours to get in on the weekends. You could never do those things anymore and get away with it. But there was a lot of camaraderie. The money I made for a college student, I was blown away. And the feeling of being proud of what you're serving. The food was fabulous. I mean, I loved it when I was a kid and my parents took us there. So I already had an affection for the place. But I think a lot of people do. I was kind of enveloped by the restaurant world. And even though I have a pre-law degree, started out college in fashion merchandising, ended up actually going to become an interior designer.
Wow.
All of those three things essentially helped me in the restaurant industry itself. I mean, I do all the design at the restaurants, and our first restaurant I did as well. Obviously, having a pre-law degree works with a different type of part of your brain. And then, the fashion thing is just design in general.
So with that kind of background, getting into sort of the why of music and Brew River, when you're looking at your financials and right now you're seeing across Cincinnati, restaurants closing, bankruptcies, it's really hard. How does that square with Brew River? And you have so many music acts throughout the week. So how do you, what does that provide to Brew River that the spreadsheet can't capture?
A lot, an integral part of our identity. From the very first week we opened in 2012, we had music. It started off with brunch only with a local blues musician. Things progressed pretty quickly. And I would say by the end of 2013, we had music 3 to 4 days a week. Obviously, we are a New Orleans restaurant. I don't think I need to tell anyone that New Orleans and music are,
synonymous,
very integral part of each other. So when you're considering your identity as a restaurant, which is very important, the music thing for us separated us in a lot of ways. There's, other places around that are doing, I wouldn't say New Orleans food, I would say more Louisiana Cajun food. The New Orleans identity, we really wanted to dive in deep and make it feel as if when you walk through our doors, you were leaving Cincinnati and going to New Orleans for a few hours, without the without the 14-hour drive or a plane trip. It sort of organically happened because, of course, the more musicians you meet, or the more musicians you book, the more musicians you meet. And people would bring other musicians to sit in with them. And then we had a music showcase for quite a long time where musicians would come and play 30-minute sets, and we would feed them. And it wasn't a pay thing, but they were fed, and it was a way for them to get exposed to our customers, and I guess for us to see them. And honestly, a lot of my musicians who are still playing with us started in that music showcase.
Cool.
A lot.
So it was built over time and
Yeah.
from the get-go. And I will say, I've been to the French Quarter, I've eaten gumbo there, and you're spot on on all counts. That's interesting though, that you, again, we go back to sort of that design philosophy and alignment. You're not just hiring just anyone necessarily. You really wanted it to identify with a Creole, New Orleans jazz kind of thing, and the acts reflect that, and that's really cool. Very cool.
For the most part, we only book blues, jazz, boogie woogie, roots, Americana. So it has to make some sort of sense for who we are. Again, it's about your identity as a restaurant.
Yeah, for example, I think of Cincinnati icon Ricky Nye, his boogie woogie piano.
And Ricky's been playing with us since 2013. So So Ricky, 100%. Ricky, and now Ben Levin, his protege, who we were his first regular gig when he was 15 years old.
And what a fun thing to watch there, right? That mentorship type of thing happening.
He's 26 now.
Yeah, wow. That's great.
It's quite. And as Ricky says this too, Ben has now, when the student surpasses the teacher.
Yeah, definitely.
Ricky, I'm only saying that because Ricky said. But Ben, it's quite something to see, and it's a really cool thing to be even the tiniest, tiniest part of. Just
to witness it and have and support it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
And that's one of the advantages of building relationships with musicians. Also, it's just like it maybe doesn't necessarily contribute to your bottom line, but it contributes to your emotional sanity. And
what I'm summarizing from that whole interactivity is you've created a place where Ricky could gig and develop something and create a platform that then he could bestow upon, like you said, his proteges. And so that's something I doubt, when I'm going in to play a gig, that I'm even thinking of 10, 15 years down the line, right? But when you've made that kind of connection and it starts from a connection and you build it together in that partnership, those things are possible. So that's really interesting. But in terms of, that's music. So what are the things that you see, like the non-musical things, say an entertainer might do that contribute to making your life easier and contributing to the restaurant's objectives? Well,
obviously the musicians taking an equal part in promoting. And I don't mean that I have ever asked them, because I don't hire someone by saying, I will hire you, but I'm only going to keep you if you do, A, B, and C. I've never done that. But I do pay attention, and the personal responsibility for their promotion is a big help. I mean, honestly, you're a tech person, that the algorithms and everything that are associated with Facebook have changed enormously. Yes. Over, the last however many 15 so years. So to get any kind of word out there, the more voices there are, so to speak, the better chance you have of somebody seeing. That's a big one. And it also contributes to the atmosphere that the guests who are just wandering in to eat see, when the musician has brought along a group of people that are enthusiastic and supportive of the musicians. And that only comes from the musician. That in general, when you bring, I'll say posse, your posse along, it's in the air. You can feel it, you can see it, you can, obviously there's butts in the seat. So, and then, we have a pretty easy setup, and we do have a sound system so they can just plug in. We don't require people to bring their own sound system. There are some musicians who prefer prefer it and do, and that's
Hmm.
fine too. We don't have, I would say, maybe some of the struggles, and we're, our music area is pretty small, but we don't have the struggles that some other places might have with dealing with the logistics of how the musicians load in and out. How do they? I've just never had that. The music that I book and the people that I book, for the most part, are very low maintenance.
Oh,
I mean,
cool.
yeah, we feed them. They know going in like how much they have to spend. There's that part of it. I would say almost all my musicians are super good now about making sure that they get their orders in early so they're not asking the kitchen after it's almost shut down to make them food. And and my staff is good about ingraining that in them too. But just being considerate. If you're moving everything around, replacing it before you go, that
Hmm.
doesn't happen very much. That's usually me the next day. But those little things make a difference. But in all honesty, for me, for Brew River, it's mostly about the music.
Okay. Well, let me ask, have you ever seen something? Do you ever witness a musician, somebody come in and entertain, and they do something that surprises you in a good way? I would imagine, like, if they put things back together and rearrange stuff, that would, de-stress you a bit. But what's the difference between, just someone coming in, checking the box and getting the tunes out, leaving, they do everything, and someone who in your mind rises above that and
Mhm.
really creates that connection?
Again, a lot of this sort of relates back to the performance aspect and the music. There's the engagement factor with our guests is a big plus.
Hmm.
I mean, honestly, a very big plus, because we are trying to get people to, one, come back, two, follow that musician, because most of my musicians play at our restaurant on a regular basis. So, meaning they have, the second Friday of every month
Hmm.
or third Saturday. A lot of my musicians have gotten to that point with us. So we want the guest to know when the musician is there, to want to follow them, and that's not necessarily just going to come because they think the musicians are great.
Great. Yeah.
There needs to be a conversation between the musician and the guest, and as what I mean by that is, don't just sit. You can't just sit down, start playing, say nothing. It's like going to see a concert, and the musician not just says hello and that's it.
Yeah,
And
Bob
start.
Dylan did that to me once, 1987 at
Oh,
Riverbend. He
I've
just
seen
plowed through
plenty.
all his tunes and he didn't say a damn thing to the rest
Yeah, I've
to the
seen
crowd.
plenty. Um, and it's the same thing. You really need to engage the crowd.
Yeah.
So that is probably my biggest parameter when I'm looking at the musicians, and when they're on break. And most of my musicians, they play 3 hours on weekends and they'll take two breaks.
Hmm.
Again, I trust them and kind of leave it up to them. But when they go in the bar area and start talking to the guests, that's another big plus in my mind.
Big plus, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's a mistake I made in my early 20s. So when I was in college, just getting the gig, and it involves a lot of just your natural human disposition. I'm just grateful to get there, set up, play the tunes, hope the tunes go well, hope everybody's in line if I'm playing with a group, and we're just hoping to not mess up. And it wasn't a thought in my mind. In fact, the thought in my mind might be, don't disturb the guests. Like, don't bother them while they're eating. And there is that too. Certainly don't want to be repulsive. But I think, especially with younger musicians, they're
Mhm.
excited. There's if you just say, hey, one device I always use is, am I too loud? And I have to ask that because I'm partially deaf in my left ear. So I just tell them that, is everything okay? Would you like to hear something? Take requests, what did you get to eat? How is it? Just general things of connecting as a human to people you don't know. And it has really served me well. to do that now, although I'm 50. But I really think that that's what I'm trying to help us overcome is go ahead and come out of your shell, because there are 30,000 musicians just like you that have your product just like you. But the thing that differentiates your product from others is you and your ability, and it gets
Yeah.
back to the people thing. So so let's talk about a successful night of music. You've had, you have somebody come in, they set up, and what says, hey, this was a success?
Well, it's definitely a combination of obviously the amount of guests in the house,
Hmm.
the quality of the music itself, and I would then say the organic atmosphere that is born from that combination of two things.
Hmm.
There, that the energy in the air. It really is important. I would love to say, oh, the only thing that matters is the quality of the music, but I own a restaurant and I'm a small independent in probably the worst time in history to own a
Hmm.
restaurant. I mean, honestly, it probably is. And it was before the pandemic. It was tough to survive, period,
Hmm.
because margins in restaurants like ours are minuscule. So after the pandemic, you can imagine what it's like. So it is important that there is a draw.
Hmm.
But I certainly, as I said, I book a lot of my musicians monthly, and I can only think of less than a handful over the last almost 14 years of musicians that were on that regular schedule that I had to like pull back on the reins a bit because people just weren't coming to see them, or
Right.
there wasn't enjoyment. There's been a couple of other little things along the way that we won't discuss, but in general, it is important that the musician's happy so that their music shows that. I mean, if the musician's miserable, it's let's be clear, it's not going to be great.
And that's a
Um,
thing. That's a thing, Joby. That not every day is a great day. But if I have a call time at 6, I have to figure out a way to bridge myself between whatever disaster my day was and whatever I'm going to do. That's another skill we have to pick up. But yeah, draw is interesting because when the money's everywhere, when the economy's good, you become a restaurant that is self-sustainable, and the music becomes an amenity that you're offering your guests that causes you to be differentiated, or actually at this point equally competitive because there's so many places with music, but you've also niched it with that Creole flavor. But when things start to dry up, then we all have to work a little bit harder. And I
mhm,
think that's an important realization. I want to talk briefly about the real costs lately. You mentioned before COVID, the margins were already thin.
mhm,
We've had some economic levers pulled recently
mhm.
that have changed things. And from the other places I play, I hear everything, not just food, but the plastics, the papers, things.
Oh,
Where are you seeing cost inflation, and how drastic is it?
everywhere. I'm not just saying that to answer the question easily.
Hmm.
It's everything is more expensive. Everything. And on top of that, people's dining habits have changed
Hmm.
post pandemic. The pandemic taught people that going out to a restaurant isn't, you don't have to go out to a restaurant to get great, food. Well, in my opinion, you still do, because the minute food leaves your door, the quality deteriorates.
Yeah.
So if you're ordering from Uber Eats or DoorDash, which of course, if guests wanted to order from us, I'm happy to, but it's not the same as
Hmm.
sitting in a restaurant and having the food come straight out from the kitchen. And so, but that being said, people have become homebodies in a lot of ways. It has really hurt restaurants.
Hmm.
Then you can talk about all the economic issues that affect people and they don't feel like they can spend money at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Um, but then as far as our costs go, I mean, when I say everything, we're talking the utilities. My utilities in my space have more than doubled, and we've only been there since the end of 2018.
Wow.
More than doubled. I mean, it's crazy.
So that's just utilities.
That's just my gas and electric.
Yeah.
Yeah. The cost that you had mentioned, paper goods, all of those things, because supply and demand. When the pandemic happened and all of the people started ordering carry out and delivery, what is affected the most by that? Well, carry out boxes.
Hmm.
And so those things, the price went through the ceiling, and the price never comes back down to what it was ever.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Right.
So everything is, even though it's not as much as it was during the pandemic, because, it was, for us, that was like the toilet paper.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's talk about food costs. I'm curious. So,
yeah,
do you know, like, if someone comes to your restaurant, what is the average amount they're going to spend if they get dinner and drinks?
at my restaurant,
Hmm.
about $35 a person,
Okay. So, see,
including alcohol.
right, including alcohol. So $35. And I think for me, the pricing at restaurants has become a mystery. Like when I go in and I sit down, I'm not ordering based on price. I'm ordering based on the fact that I haven't eaten in 5 hours. So I'm just targeting things I want to eat. And then when the price comes back, I'm like, wow. Let's talk about where do you get, and you don't need to name your suppliers, but I really want to take people deep into, I have to buy food for my restaurant. I do that. Where are you getting that from? Can you speak to the cost there? And because I get literally feedback, they're saying, "Oh, their food cost didn't go up." Do you really think their food costs went up? And I'm like, I think it's fairly obvious, but
I don't know who. I mean, anyone who said that is just literally spewing out words to talk. Because someone who said that they would absolutely have to have no idea about what's going on. You go to the grocery store and your prices have increased. It's all relative, except for the fact that when you're going to a restaurant, you're not just paying for the increase of the food cost.
Right.
Food cost involves gas and electric, your water bill, your cable bill, your whatever TV service you have, whatever music licensing you have. I have to pay for 3 different music licensing services in order to have music. All of your paper products, open table service, whoever might be helping you with marketing, all of those things go into the cost of what you're eating in a restaurant. And if you decide you want to eat in a restaurant, then you are gladly accepting those as you would when you buy a concert ticket and you know what you're getting there. You go to a restaurant because you don't want to cook at home, or you want to be around other people, or you want to experience something new cuisine-wise. Unfortunately, that is a very costly endeavor.
Understood.
So it's
well, I appreciate you talking with me today. Wanted to mention that all the types of events you have coming up, you do New Orleans brunch on Sundays at 11 a.m. You've got the Ludlow Trio every third Friday at
6:30 to 9:30.
6:30 to 9:30.
We have music every night we're open. So
unbelievable.
Weekdays are 6:30 to 8:30, and then weekends are 6:30 to 9:30, with the exception of Sunday because we close at 9, so it's 6 to 9. But
well, that's incredible.
And then brunch, we have music at brunch too.
Fantastic. And I know people enjoy being there, eating there, listening to music there, and I just want to thank you for hanging on. Let's talk about your outlook. Let's talk about the next 6 months, or maybe the next hour. But what do you see as your next steps and your prospects for the future?
I mean, in all honesty, it is a struggle every day to open our doors. I mean, I don't want to speak for other people, but we're not the exception.
Sure.
So cash flow is always a challenge in our industry, even more so over the last few years. And the this is an interesting thing. Pre-pandemic, it was very easy to gauge your numbers based on a slow season and a busy season. And post-pandemic, I have seen that become harder and harder to gauge. It's not as predictable. It's not the same months. I mean, there's, everyone knows September is a horrible restaurant month in Cincinnati. But for us, on the positive side, we are going into our busier season because of carnival season. So January is actually better for us than December is, which I know other restaurants would be like, January is horrible. Well, for us, it's better.
So you said September's usually slow for you.
September is slow for everybody.
Everyone.
Back to school. It honestly, it's September and October. It's horrible across the board.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I'm sure there's the exception to the rule. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me today for this podcast. I do think it's going to benefit a lot of musicians to hear about your plight, what you're trying to do. And my takeaway right now is, despite it being hard to, as you said, open the door every day and struggle through that, you still continue to support live music every day. And the other takeaway for me is that you're not just bringing in random things. You've actually done a brand, and you've branded the music against that as well, which creates that, I don't want to say secret sauce, but it's that flavor. And I've been there as well. I've had your fish and chips. I've had your jambalaya and your gumbo. Everything is great, and the spice is spot on. Like straight French Quarter. So I appreciate everything you do. I appreciate your passion for musicians, and the way you talk about musicians very positively. And hopefully, I just hope that partnership continues between you and those musicians, and we continue to get good Creole gumbo from you for some years to come. So I thank you so much, Joby. I know you're busy.
Oh, thank you. Thanks
you
for having me.
Cool.
All right. Appreciate
I'll see
it.
you on the weekend if I make it down.
Okay.
As we wrap up today's conversation with Joby, I want to leave you with a question. Are you a light bulb, or are you a stakeholder? It's easy to think our only job is to show up, play a perfect set, and go home. But as Joby just shared, for an owner struggling in the restaurant squeeze of 2026, the music is only 50% of the reason you're in the room. When utility bills have more than doubled since 2018 and the average guest is spending just $35, the math is simple. If you aren't an active partner in driving those covers, you're a net cost to the business. Knowing this isn't selling out. It's called knowing your worth. It's about realizing that 10 people who actually show up for you, your posse, are worth more to a venue than 10,000 cold followers on a screen. You don't have to be a business person to take your music seriously. You just have to be a professional who protects their creative autonomy. Right now, there's a community of 70 performers, with about a dozen of us active every day, who are using money gigs to share this kind of data and stop the learned helplessness that has held our industry back for too long. Take 5 minutes a day to look at your next gig through Joby's lens. Are you helping that door stay open, or are you just waiting to be switched out? Download Money Gigs on Apple or Google, join the 70, and start knowing your worth. I'm Cliff Adams, and I'll see you at the next set.